Bret Sergeant Hart was born on July 2, 1957, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, into what would become one of the most famous wrestling families in the world. His father, Stu Hart, was already a legend in Canadian wrestling circles, known for his Calgary-based promotion, Stampede Wrestling, and for training countless wrestlers in his basement dungeon, where countless aspiring athletes learned the craft of grappling. Growing up in such a household meant Bret was surrounded by wrestling from the very start. His brothers, his sisters, and even extended relatives would all have ties to the industry, making wrestling less of a career choice and more of a family inheritance. While many children dream of different futures, Bret's world was always influenced by the sight of wrestlers coming and going, training with his father, and competing for a shot at recognition. He developed an amateur wrestling background during his school years at Ernest Manning High School and later at Mount Royal College, where his natural athleticism and sense of discipline laid the foundation for the professional career that would follow. Wrestling was in his DNA, but Bret also carried within him a sense of artistry. He would later come to describe his approach to matches as painting a picture, blending storytelling with athletic skill, an approach that made him stand apart from many of his contemporaries. Rise in Stampede Wrestling and transition to WWE, Bret's entry into professional wrestling was inevitable, but it was not handed to him without effort. Under the guidance of his father, he began performing in Stampede Wrestling, where he learned the fundamentals of ring psychology, conditioning, and how to work in front of passionate but demanding Canadian audiences. The territory system at the time made wrestlers travel extensively, honing their craft in different regions, and Bret benefited from performing in front of diverse crowds, each with unique expectations. His work ethic and technical precision became noticeable, and soon the larger wrestling world took notice of the young man from Calgary who carried himself with quiet confidence. His big break came in the mid-1980s when he joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now WWE, marking the beginning of a journey that would place him at the center of wrestling's golden era. Initially part of the Hart Foundation, with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Bret played the cool, technically gifted counterpart to Neidhart's explosive power, and together they became one of the most respected tag teams of their time. The Hart Foundation's blend of skill and charisma earned them tag team championships and paved the way for Bret's eventual singles success, where he would prove himself not only as an excellent performer, but as one of the finest in-ring technicians of all time. Singles stardom and the Hitman persona. The transformation of Bret Hart from a tag team wrestler into a singles star was gradual but inevitable. Known as the Hitman, Bret built a reputation for his ability to wrestle opponents of any size or style, adapting his matches to showcase both his opponent and himself in the best possible light. Unlike many larger-than-life characters of the era, Bret was relatable. He wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the loudest, but he was authentic, and fans connected to his everyman appeal. His wrestling matches became known for their precision, storytelling, and emotional depth, often ending with his signature move, the sharpshooter, which became one of the most iconic submission holds in wrestling history. Bret captured his first Intercontinental Championship in 1991 and went on to win multiple world championships throughout the 1990s, standing toe-to-toe with legends like Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Perhaps his most famous match came at WrestleMania 13 in 1997, when his brutal encounter with Austin not only defined his career, but also symbolized a shift in professional wrestling toward a more intense reality-based style. This period solidified Bret as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, a catchphrase that would follow him for the rest of his life and career. The Montreal Screwjob, and its impact. No biography of Bret Hart can be complete without addressing one of the most infamous events in wrestling history, the Montreal Screwjob of 1997. At Survivor Series in Montreal, Bret, who was then the WWF champion, was controversially double-crossed in a match against Shawn Michaels when Vince McMahon ordered the referee to ring the bell prematurely, awarding the title to Michaels. The betrayal occurred without Bret's knowledge, despite assurances about how the match would end, and it left him shocked and furious in front of his hometown crowd. This moment not only ended Bret's career in WWF, but also reshaped the wrestling industry, leading to the rise of the Mr. McMahon character and the era of attitude that would soon dominate television ratings. For Bret, however, the Screwjob was more than a storyline. It was a personal wound that affected his trust, his career trajectory, and even his financial stability, as he was forced to transition to World Championship Wrestling, WCW. In WCW, despite his skills, Bret was never utilized to his full potential, suffering from backstage politics and creative mismanagement, which left fans frustrated and Bret himself struggling to find the same fulfillment he once had in WWF. The Screwjob lingered in his legacy, becoming both a point of sympathy and a cautionary tale about the harsh realities of the wrestling business. Tragedy, family, and loss. Beyond his professional highs and lows, Bret's personal life was deeply affected by tragedy. Coming from a large wrestling family meant he not only shared success with his siblings, but also grief when the business claimed their lives. The most devastating loss came in 1999, when his younger brother, Owen Hart, died during a WWF pay-per-view event after a stunt went terribly wrong. Owen's death shocked the wrestling world and devastated Bret, who struggled with anger and sorrow at the circumstances that led to the accident. The Hart family, already marked by infighting and the stresses of the wrestling business, faced even more strain as lawsuits, public scrutiny, and private grief intertwined. Bret himself endured the collapse of his marriage to Julie, with whom he shared 4 children, Jade, Dallas, Blade, and Alexandra, adding further personal challenges to his life outside the ring. Despite remarrying later in life, first to Cynthia Rota and then to Stephanie Washington, Bret has often spoken candidly about the emotional scars left by his family's struggles, both inside and outside wrestling. Health struggles and recovery. In 2002, Bret Hart suffered a major health crisis when he experienced a stroke that left him partially paralyzed. The stroke was the result of a bicycle accident combined with a history of concussions sustained during his wrestling career. For a man who had once been defined by physical precision and strength, this was a crushing blow, and the recovery process required immense determination. Months of physical therapy followed as Bret relearned basic motor functions, speech, and balance. While he eventually regained significant mobility, the incident permanently changed his life, forcing him to slow down and adapt to physical limitations. Later, in 2016, Bret revealed another battle, this time with prostate cancer. The diagnosis was another life-altering challenge, though he underwent successful surgery and entered remission. These health battles underscored the toll that both wrestling and life had taken on him, but they also highlighted his resilience. Bret often speaks about the importance of health awareness, particularly for men, and uses his platform to encourage preventive checkups and treatments. His health struggles remain a defining aspect of his later years, serving both as a warning about the physical price of wrestling and as inspiration for perseverance. Financial challenges and realities. While Bret Hart achieved fame and fortune as one of wrestling's biggest stars, his financial story has not been without struggles. During his peak years, he signed one of the most lucrative contracts in WWF history, but the fallout of the Montreal Screwjob and his move to WCW disrupted his financial trajectory. WCW's mishandling of his career meant he was not always placed in top positions that matched his pay scale, and following the company's collapse in 2001, his financial stability was tested. Legal battles, family disputes, and health expenses also added strain. Bret has spoken openly about how the wrestling business often leaves performers without long-term security, as guaranteed pensions or structured retirement plans were not common in the industry during his era. Instead, wrestlers had to be proactive in saving, investing, and managing their earnings. For Bret, careful planning, royalties, appearances, and his autobiography helped stabilize his situation, but financial anxieties were always present. He represents a generation of wrestlers who achieved incredible fame but had to learn the hard way about financial planning once the spotlight dimmed. Legacy and influence on wrestling. Despite the hardships, Bret Hart's legacy in professional wrestling remains untouched. Known as one of the greatest technical wrestlers in history, he influenced countless performers who came after him, from CM Punk to Daniel Bryan, who credit Bret as a role model. His matches are still studied for their storytelling, psychology, and ability to captivate audiences without relying solely on spectacle. Bret's emphasis on in-ring excellence, respect for opponents, and dedication to making every match meaningful set him apart in an industry that often prioritized larger-than-life characters over craft. He carried himself with dignity, embodying the idea that wrestling could be both athletic and artistic. The respect he commands from fans and peers alike is evident in the numerous Hall of Fame inductions and tributes he has received, and his nickname, the Hitman, continues to symbolize precision, professionalism, and pride in one's work. Current life, reflection, balance, and legacy. At 68, Bret Hart has embraced a quieter chapter of life, one focused on family, health, and the memories of a career that shaped professional wrestling. Surviving both a stroke and cancer has made him more mindful of his well-being, but it hasn't dimmed his connection to the sport he loves. While no longer performing in the ring, Bret still engages with fans through conventions, interviews, and occasional WWE appearances, offering a bridge between his legendary past and the present. Financially, Bret has found stability after years of navigating the ups and downs of the wrestling business. Book sales, merchandise, and appearances now support a comfortable life, allowing him to focus less on survival and more on reflection. He spends much of his time looking back on his career, not just the triumphs, but also the mistakes and challenges, sharing lessons learned and insights gained with honesty and humility. More than the accolades or the championship belts, Bret values the relationships he's built and the role he's played in wrestling history. He cherishes time with his family and enjoys the slower pace that comes with stepping back from the spotlight. Yet, even in retirement, his presence resonates. Fans still find inspiration in his stories of resilience, discipline, and perseverance. Bret Hart's life today is a testament to endurance and balance. It's a reminder that even icons who once seemed larger than life are human, vulnerable, reflective, and capable of growth. His journey encompasses ambition and sacrifice, hardship and recovery, and above all, a legacy built not just on wrestling achievements, but on the grace, wisdom, and authenticity with which he navigated life's toughest moments.